Welcome back to Revenge Heat. The story I'm about to tell you happened in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And it still feels like yesterday, even though the group text that started it all is almost 3 years old now. My name is Delaney Walsh. I'm 29. And according to my mother, I'm the stain on an otherwise spotless family portrait because I drive an 18-wheeler for a regional freight company out of the Lehigh Valley. I'm writing this down like a letter to the woman I used to be. The one who still believed that if she just worked one more overtime shift, one more holiday haul, one more run through the Poconos in a snowstorm, her mother might finally say the word trucker out loud without flinching. Have you ever given the best years of your life to people who would later pretend you weren't even in the room? While my older brother was racking up letters behind his name at a teaching hospital in Philadelphia, and my sister was posting reels from her architecture firm in Boston, and my younger brother was coasting through his MBA program on a scholarship I helped him apply for, I was the one running loads up and down I-81 to keep the lights on in the house where all of us grew up. When my dad's heart gave out the summer I turned 21, it was my CDL money that covered the funeral, the back taxes, and the refinanced mortgage my mom swore she could handle on her own. It wasn't glamorous work. I came home with diesel in my hair, lower back knotted like a fist, and bruises on my shins from climbing in and out of the cab 15 times a day. But the checks cleared. The house stayed. My little brother stayed in school. To my mother, though, my steel-toed boots and my company hoodie meant only one thing: disappointment. I still remember the 4th of July a couple summers ago when my aunt asked what I was up to these days. Before I could even open my mouth, my mother jumped in with that tight, embarrassed laugh of hers and said, "Oh, Delaney's still trying to figure things out. She's helping out with a transportation company for now." She couldn't say the word truck. She couldn't say driver. She said transportation company, the way other people say minimum security. When I tried to correct her, she pulled me into the pantry and hissed, "Must you always announce it? Delaney, can you not just let people assume something respectable for one afternoon?" I swallowed it the way I'd been swallowing it for years. I told myself that one day, when I had enough saved to buy my own rig and run my own routes, she'd see the picture I'd been painting the whole time. I had no idea that Mother's Day weekend was already loaded in the chamber, and that a single group text was about to finish what 1,000 small humiliations had started. Before I tell you exactly what my mother wrote in that Mother's Day message, and what I did afterward that made me vanish from their lives for good, do-me a favor. Drop a comment and tell me what time it is, where you're watching from, what city, what country. I want to know how far this story ends up traveling, because part of me still can't believe how many people tell me they've lived a version of it. Mother's Day weekend in Scranton usually smells like lilacs and charcoal smoke. That year, I smelled none of it. I was on a run down to a distribution center outside Harrisburg, pulled over in the corner of a truck stop, eating a rubbery gas station sandwich in the cab. My phone buzzed on the dash. Walsh family group chat. My chest did that stupid, hopeful thing it always did. Like a dog that hasn't learned yet. I imagined something simple. Like, "Love you all. Even my road warrior." Instead, I opened the message and read it twice before my brain caught up to my eyes. Mother's Day brunch this Sunday at the Ivy Room downtown. So excited to celebrate with my accomplished children. Ethan. My son, the doctor. Bryn. My brilliant architect. Cole. My MBA in the making. Reservations under Walsh at 11. Dress code is smart casual, so please plan accordingly. Can't wait to finally have a photo worth framing. She tagged my older brother. She tagged my sister. She tagged my younger brother. My name was not in that message. Not at the top. Not at the bottom. Not as an afterthought. Not in a single emoji. Just 3 names and a dress code warning that might as well have had my face printed on it. Then the reactions rolled in. Ethan sans à champagne glace. Bryn scent sparkles. And a pink heart. Cole's song. Wouldn't miss it. Ma. I sat in that truck stop parking lot. Engine ticking as it cooled. And I watched the typing bubbles come and go. I kept waiting. For my mother to add. Oh. And Delaney too. Of course. For one of my siblings to type. What about Lainey? For anyone to notice the missing chair. The bubble never came. The only thing that came was a separate text from my mother. Direct to me this time. Hi, honey. I know Sunday feels like it should include everyone. But this one is just for the kids, who have real news to share. People at the restaurant will ask what everyone does, and I don't want things to feel awkward for you. We can do a coffee just us sometime soon. Try to understand. I read that message so many times. The letters stopped being letters. She wasn't forgetting me. She wasn't even pretending to forget me. She was telling me, in her careful teacher voice, that I was the awkward part she needed to edit out before the photos started. I set the phone down on the passenger seat, face up, and I just stared out the windshield at a family loading coolers into a minivan across the lot. A little girl was riding on her dad's shoulders, laughing so hard, her head tipped back. I watched her until my eyes burned. And then I pulled back onto the highway and finished my run, because that's what you do when you're the one everyone counts on and nobody counts. Have you ever watched your own mother type a polite sentence that confirms you're a problem she's been trying to solve? I didn't reply. I didn't call. For the next 24 hours, I drove. I slept in the sleeper berth at a rest stop outside Allentown. And I let something inside me go very, very quiet. Not angry, quiet. Decision quiet. By the time I rolled back into my apartment in Scranton on Sunday afternoon, while my family was presumably clinking mimosa glasses downtown under a chandelier, I had made up my mind about something I hadn't even let myself consider before. That evening, I sat at my little kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pen from the truck stop. I drew a line down the middle. On the left side I wrote, "Keep trying." On the right side I wrote, "Walk away." Under, "Keep trying," I listed things like, "She's still my mom. Holidays. Maybe one day she'll get it. I'm the responsible one, and someone has to be." Under "Walk away," I listed, "No more swallowing it. No more eating alone in a truck stop while they toast each other. No more funding a family that edits me out. Peace. Space. A life that is actually mine." The right side filled up faster than the left. I sat there with the pen hovering, listening to that voice in my head that sounded exactly like my mother asking, "Who cuts off their own family?" over a text message. As if the text message was the first wound, and not the 100th. My phone buzzed. The family chat again. Photos from brunch. My mother, between my brother in a navy blazer, and my sister in a cream-colored dress. My younger brother grinning at the end, with a flute of something golden. Captions like, "My pride and joy." And "So blessed." And under one photo, where all 4 of them were arranged like a J. Crew catalog. My mother had written, "My greatest achievements." Fourface. 3 children of hers, and 1 version of the family I had apparently never belonged in. Separate from the chat. My older brother had sent me a private message. "Hey Lainey. Don't make this a thing. Okay. Mom was nervous about the optics at the Ivy Room. You know how she gets. Next time come through with a win, and she'll pull you back in." My sister followed up with, Just post more about your job if you want her to be proud. Make it look glamorous. She's visual. Not one of them wrote. This was wrong. Not one of them wrote. We'll speak up for you. The problem, in their minds, was my packaging. I stared at the 2 columns on my yellow pad until the ink blurred. Then I opened the group chat. Scrolled up to the original message. Just for the kids who have real news to share. And I took a screenshot. I put it in a locked folder on my phone, labeled receipts. Not because I planned to use it as a weapon, but because I needed proof on the days I'd be tempted to rewrite history in her favor. Then I opened my mother's contact. I held my thumb on her name. Hit block? The phone asked if I was sure. For the first time in 29 years. I was. I blocked my older brother. I blocked my sister. I hesitated on my younger brother. Because I had paid for half his textbooks and watched him grow up. And then I blocked him too. Because loyalty in that family had apparently always been a one-way street. My friend and driving partner Margot Halstead came over that night with a pizza and a 6-pack. She saw my red eyes and the yellow pad and the blank screen on my phone that used to light up constantly. She read both columns without saying a word. And then she said, "You already know. Lainey. You just needed to write it down, to believe yourself." My voice came out in a whisper. "Would you cut off your own mother? If she literally wrote you out of a text." She didn't even pause. "I'd cut off anyone who made me feel small on purpose. Blood isn't a contract. It's a coincidence." At the bottom of my right-hand column, I wrote in capital letters, "I choose me." I underlined it twice. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. And for the first time in years, my first thought wasn't about how to make my mother proud. My first thought was about what I actually wanted my day to look like. Once the group chat was gone, the world got quieter in a way I didn't expect. The notifications I thought I'd miss felt, in hindsight, like a slow drip of cold water I'd just gotten used to. Without them, I could hear myself think. I doubled down at work. Not to prove anything to her this time, but because I finally had the energy to be ambitious for myself. My dispatcher, Raymond, mentioned that the company was subsidizing hazmat endorsements and tanker certifications for drivers willing to take on longer routes. I signed up the same afternoon. I started studying in the sleeper berth at rest stops, drinking bad coffee, and circling answers in a workbook like I was back in high school. Margot signed up too. And we became the annoying pair at the training classes. Sitting up front, asking follow-up questions the instructors loved, and the other drivers rolled their eyes at. A few months in, I was pulling into the yard after a long Tuesday run when I saw my younger brother standing near the dispatch office. Cool. Hoodie pulled up, hands jammed in his pockets, looking like a kid who got off at the wrong bus stop. My chest did something complicated. I parked the truck, climbed down, and walked over. Because I was not going to let him feel like he'd ambushed me in my own parking lot. "How did you know I'd be here?" I asked. "Margot's cousin works at the dispatch window," he said, eyes on his shoes. "Don't be mad at her," I basically begged. We walked to a picnic table behind the building, where the drivers take smoke breaks. For a while he didn't say anything. Then he said, quietly, "I saw the Mother's Day text. I saw it the minute she sent it. I told myself I'd say something, and then I didn't. I'm sorry. Lainey." His apology hit harder than anything my mother had ever said to me. Maybe because he was the one I'd helped the most. And maybe because he was the first person in that family to use the word sorry without a but attached to the end of it. "She's not doing great. By the way," he said. "Not in the way you'd think. Nothing is wrong with her. Everyone at church still loves her. It's more like, she keeps bringing you up. She'll be fine, and then halfway through dinner she'll go. I just don't understand why Delaney has to be so dramatic. Like you're a problem she can't solve. She's embarrassed that you left. But she won't admit what she did to make you leave. He gave me a lopsided smile. She's embarrassed that you're embarrassed. That tracks, I said. He twisted the drawstring of his hoodie around his finger. I'm not going to pretend I've been a good brother. I watched. I laughed at her jokes about your job. I took the money you sent for my books, and I never asked you how you were doing. I just assumed you were tough, because you had to be. His voice cracked a little. I know I don't get to just show up here and get absolved. But I'm trying to stop being the kid who lets her do the talking. I let him sit in the silence for a minute before I answered. Because I've learned that forgiveness offered too fast is usually forgiveness that isn't real. Then I said, you don't have to repeat her script. Cole, you're allowed to tell the truth out loud. Even when it makes her look bad. Especially when it makes her look bad. He nodded like he was swallowing something hard. Before he left, he told me my mother had started asking, just here and there, why the church ladies weren't hearing updates about me anymore. Why so-and-so had asked about her trucker daughter. Why the story she'd crafted for 29 years was suddenly developing holes. The quiet disappearance was doing its work. My promotion came on a Wednesday, in the middle of an ice storm. Raymond called me into his little glass office, closed the door, and told me the company was building out a new regional training program for women drivers and wanted me to help lead it. Better pay. A title with the word lead in it. Speaking engagements at 2-year colleges and trade schools. I said yes before I finished processing the question. A year before, my first thought would have been, my mother is going to have to brag about this. This time, my first thought was, I did this. Delaney Walsh. It did this. And I don't owe anyone a press release. The new role was a lot. I was still driving. But I was also writing training modules, and sitting in on safety reviews, and standing in front of rooms full of nervous 20-year-olds. Half of them girls who had never met a female trucker in real life. I started keeping a little notebook in my cab of things they said to me after class. My dad said I couldn't do this. My boyfriend laughed at me. My mom told me to pick something prettier. I recognized every single sentence. One long night. After a girl in Wilkes-Barre told me her stepmother had called her trade school a clown college. I came home and opened the Notes app on my phone. And I just started typing. I didn't plan for it to be anything. It turned into a long essay about how families weaponize respectability. About how the word embarrassing gets used to control women who pick work that doesn't photograph well. About how the question, what does your daughter do, has been ruining dinners for generations. I copied it into a blog Margot had set up for me months ago, and never used. I titled the post, Real News to Share, What I Learned When My Mother Edited Me, out of Mother's Day. I hit publish before I could chicken out. I figured maybe 12 people would read it. A week later, it had thousands of views. Comments poured in from women I'd never meet. An electrician in Ohio. A paramedic in Nevada. A long-haul driver in Saskatchewan. A welder in Houston. All of them telling me some version of. I thought I was the only one. Margot texted me a screenshot of the post shared on a big career page for women in the trades. With the caption, "This is what quiet revenge looks like." And then, because the world is both small and cruel, somebody from my mother's church shared it on her personal Facebook with the caption, "Praying for families that don't see their daughters." My mother had no idea she was the villain in a story her own friends were circulating. 3 days later, an unknown number called my phone. I let it ring out. The voicemail was my mother. Voice tight, as a violin string. Delaney. It's Mom. I'm hearing about a post going around. People at church are asking me questions I don't know how to answer. If this is you, I need you to take it down. This is not the way we handle family matters. Call me back. Not. Are you okay? Not. I miss you. Not. I'm sorry. Just. Take it down. I saved the voicemail in the same folder as the screenshot. Another receipt. I did not call her back. A few weeks later, Margot talked me into doing a live storytelling night at a community arts space downtown. Team. When love comes with conditions. My hands were shaking when I stepped up to the mic. The room was full of strangers in flannel and business casual and paint-splattered jeans. I opened with the line I knew would land. My mother called me embarrassing because I drive a truck. You could hear people inhale. I told them about the 4th of July. About the word transportation company. About the Mother's Day text. I read it out loud. When I got to, just for the kids who have real news to share, at least 3 people in the front row put their hands over their mouths. I told them about the legal pad. About choosing me. About the blog. About the voicemail from a woman who was more worried about her pew at church than her daughter's heart. I ended with this. I said, I used to think family was a tab I was born owing. I spent my 20s working double shifts to pay down a debt nobody had actually loaned me. It took my own mother typing me out of a sentence to teach me that love that requires my silence was never love. It was a subscription. And I was the one being charged. The applause was the loud kind. The kind that isn't about performance. People hugged me after. A woman in her 60s held my hand and said, I should have done what you did 40 years ago. By the time I got home that night, a clip of my talk had been posted by someone in the audience, and the blog had been reshared by a national women in trades outlet. My sister texted me for the first time in months. Just a line. I saw it. I'm not going to pretend I know what to say. But I saw it. Then something I didn't expect. A few years drifted by in the soft, unremarkable way. Real life actually moves. No movie ending. No grand confrontation in a living room. Just work. I moved up again. I started running my own training division. I traveled to trade shows and women in trucking conferences and sat on panels with men who used to assume I was somebody's assistant. Margot and I bought a used tandem rig together as a side business. And we started taking on specialty hauls on weekends. And we named it Halstead Walsh Freight because our last names sounded like a law firm. And it made us laugh every time we saw it painted on the door. My apartment filled up with small, chosen things. A mug from a diner in Binghamton, where a waitress had once told me I looked like I needed a pie on the house. A framed photo of my first training class. A cactus named Gary. Every so often, Cole would check in. He kept me updated on the family in a way that was honest without being cruel. My older brother had made partner at his practice. My sister had gotten engaged to a man who seemed fine in a beige sort of way. And my mother? My mother was struggling. Not dramatically. Just steadily. Her blood pressure was bad. The roof on the old house needed redoing. The taxes had gone up. She had quietly gone back to work part-time at the church office to cover the gap. And somewhere in there, she had started asking, not quite directly but close, where I was. And then one night Cole called me with a voice I hadn't heard since he was 16. Mom wants your number. Lainey. She says she wants to reach out. She's been having a rough stretch. Does she want to reach out? I asked. Or does she want something? He was quiet for a long time. Then, to his credit, he said. She wants something. She won't come out and say it. But she's been talking about how if her real daughter cared about family, she'd help with the house. She keeps saying that. Her real daughter. There was a version of me. The 22-year-old version, with diesel in her hair, and a dead dad, and a refinanced mortgage. Who would have picked up the phone that night and offered to cover the roof? That version of me had been trained so thoroughly that guilt didn't feel like guilt. It felt like duty. It felt like oxygen. For a second, I felt her rise up inside me, reaching for my phone, ready to rescue a woman who had never once rescued her back. And then I took a breath. And I let that version of me sit down. I asked Cole, "What about Ethan? What about Bryn? They're the ones she calls her real children. Have they offered?" He laughed without any humor in it. "Ethan said he's swamped at the hospital. Bryn said her fiancé doesn't believe in adult kids, propping up their parents. I offered what I could. Which is basically nothing. So yeah. You're the one she's circling back to. The embarrassing one. The transportation company one. The one whose name she couldn't say out loud in the pantry 2 summers ago." I closed my eyes, and I let it land. Every time she had stood in a kitchen and told a cousin that I was still finding myself. Every Christmas card where my name had been left off. Every dress code warning. Every smart casual. And now, in the version of the story where her real children had real news but no real willingness, she wanted the trucker daughter to come pick up the pieces she had personally scattered. "Tell her this," I said to Cole. "Tell her I hope her health improves. Tell her I hope she gets the help she needs. Tell her I am genuinely glad she has 3 children she's proud of. And I hope they show up for her the way she trained them to expect. But I am not her backup generator. I am not the emergency fund she keeps in a drawer, marked embarrassing. She chose who counted. I'm going to respect her choice." Cole exhaled. "She's going to say you're cruel. She's going to say a lot of things." I said, "None of them have to be true just because she says them loudly." About 2 weeks later, a padded envelope showed up at my apartment. No return address. But I knew that handwriting the way you know the sound of a door in the house you grew up in. Inside was a small pewter charm from a bracelet I'd had as a kid and long since lost. And a letter. The letter did exactly what I knew it would do. It did not contain the words sorry. It contained the words, "You misunderstood." And I only ever did what I thought was best. And you have hurt me by making our private matters into public content. And near the end, the line I had been waiting for without realizing it. After everything I did for you, the very least you could do is step up for your mother in her hour of need. I put the letter down on my kitchen table next to my old yellow pad. The same one that still had "I Coos Me" at the bottom, in capital letters. I made myself a cup of coffee. I thought about my dad, who had loved me loud and without conditions. And who would have read this letter and said, "Lainey, you don't owe anyone a rescue. They have been rehearsing as your job since you were 12. I did not write back a long response. I did not beg her to understand. I did not send money. I did not mail a check. I had Cole pass along one message, word for word, so he wouldn't have to improvise. "I hope you heal. I hope you're supported by the family you built. I am not stepping back into a role that nearly erased me. I wish you peace." A few days later, Cole texted me. "She cried. Then she called you ungrateful. Then she told the Altar Society you abandoned her. Then, and this is the part that surprised me, she stopped asking. I think she finally heard you." I sat with that for a long time. It didn't feel like winning. It felt heavy and tired, and something close to honest. There is a kind of grief for the mother you deserved but never had. And nobody really warns you that walking away doesn't make that grief smaller. It just makes it yours to carry in peace, instead of I wrote one more post on my blog after the letter. A sort of final chapter to that particular chapter. I wrote about how you can hope someone heals without volunteering to be their medicine. I wrote about how love that requires your disappearance is not love. It's management. I wrote that blue-collar work is not a waiting room for a better life. It is a life. It pays mortgages and raises little brothers, and puts flowers on graves, and learns hazmat endorsements in rest stops at 2 a.m. I wrote that family, real family, is the people who show up when your name is on the line. Not the people who make sure your name is off the invitation. I still drive. I still wear steel-toed boots. I still come home some nights with my lower back knotted up like an old rope. But I don't hear my mother's voice in my head anymore when I swipe my badge at the gate. I hear my own voice. I hear Margot laughing at something stupid over the CB. I hear a nervous, 20-year-old girl in my training class asking if it's really possible to build a whole life out of a job her family calls embarrassing, and I get to look her in the eye and tell her the truth. So let me leave you with this. If a parent who spent years shrinking you down to a size they found acceptable came back around and asked you to pay for the roof over the house, you were never fully welcome in. Would you call it forgiveness to say yes? Or would you finally call it freedom to say no? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. The stories on Revenge Heat are works of fiction, written to explore the real emotional terrain of family, work, worth, and boundaries. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. Our goal is not to glorify conflict, but to give voice to the quiet moments when a person finally decides they are allowed to choose themselves. Thank you for riding along.